Welcome back to Morning Line, everybody. I'm Cuthbert Langley here with the sheriff. We have a great conversation so far, folks complimenting the sheriff's department, asking a lot of great questions as well. One of them, before we took a break, was talking about all the cameras along the interstate. Yeah. And you kind of touched on a lot of some of the cameras that you may see around downtown. Can you kind of explain those, as folks are obviously more in downtown with the holidays around, kind of what those are for? Yeah,
there's some that are monitored by the Metro Police Department that really are, intersections and so forth, traffic, but also just to kind of have an idea, and you see this a lot when there's a crime or alleged crime that's committed, and you'll see the footage later on TV. And the ones that are, I think, are kind of neat are the ones that are more mobile, and then they can be projected up into the air. But a lot of them are on poles, light poles and so forth, and they'll have a blue blinking light on that, and it's monitored by the police department. And a lot of cities, I was out the other night, and in the Hundred Oaks area, you'll see a lot of that as well. It's just it's a safety measure, and I think it makes people feel safe that it's being monitored. And but that's all done through the police department. A lot of cities, like a lot of controversy over speeding and red lights and so forth. That's not really what these are used for. This is more to kind of observe what's going on. But a lot of controversies about cameras, body cameras now, and law enforcement. A lot going on with that. And I think in the future the world will never be the same because of cameras. Really, what all's happening.
And folks, as they come down to Broadway for New Year's, they're probably going to see more of those cameras, would be my assumption. Yeah, I mean, and I say this all the time, but law enforcement is always interested in information. I mean, years ago, what you would think of a police officer or solving a crime or whatever is information given to you by the public. That's how it works. I mean, it's not as simple and as sophisticated maybe as some CSI and these other shows make it. A lot of times it's information people have given you. Well, what's happening now is, because the technology is so readily available, that it's taking a picture of a license plate, it's video and what you saw happening. And I have a 21-year-old son, and he wouldn't ever think to sit down and write down what he saw. He would capture it and video it, whatever it is. And so what law enforcement's doing, I'm on the board of the National Sheriff's Association, and there are apps now where you just download and zap it to law enforcement and take it from there, and so you don't have to have the write out a report and come out and do all that. It's so I think in the future, I mean, you just watch what happens. So much is captured, and right now what you hear a lot about is the negative stuff. There's plenty of it, but the truth is there's a lot of positive, and I mean, that helps communities. When you see a strange vehicle driving by, a lot of people take pictures of that now and send it to you. Well, years ago they would describe it as, I think it was silver, I don't know what year it was. So you just think about how it's going to work, and I'm sure there's some stuff that's out there that we need to improve in the world of law enforcement. But I really think that the future is to use technology to all of our advantages to help protect the community. So I think that's some of the stuff that's kind of being thought through now. And like I said, the generation that's in their 20s, they see something unusual, the first thing they do is pull out the camera. Absolutely. It's definitely my generation as well. The cell phones are all over the place, that's
Everybody,
for sure. Yeah. With all the folks coming in, I mean, the hundreds, what is it, 100,000 expected for New Year's, perhaps more than that. Are you going to be bringing in more reinforcements? How are you guys working with Metro throughout the holiday season? Yeah,
the whole city is working with the Convention Visitor Bureau, who kind of puts on that event, and they've been planning it and working a year, and really Metro Police will handle most of the enforcement of all of that. But there's so many different pieces to it: security and roads that are going to be closed, and then of course we're part of it, doing some work in Silver Route as well. But yeah, it's a concentrated. One thing I think is better is Nashville kind of knows where the crowd's going to be and how to handle that. As you can imagine, over the years we didn't have horse patrol back when I was a kid here, and but all that's very good in the crowd control and so forth. So it's a plan. It works out all year long. There's all sorts of things that go into it about traffic flow and getting people in and out of town, and then again just making sure that it's a safe and a fun night. And I think that's the good news. You kind of learn some lessons over the years as a group, and but the thing keeps getting bigger. I mean, you put the bowl game, and it moved. It used to be 2 days before. It's now New Year's Eve, I guess, day, and so much going on in Nashville. Just it's chaos.
It's crazy when you see the pictures, from the music note, and you look up Broadway back, 5 or 6 blocks, and there are just people from sidewalk to sidewalk. It's amazing how many people can fit in downtown.
Well, and again, to think that people are coming and feel comfortable and spending their money and enjoying themselves is really what Nashville needs. It helps the city. It's a really good, to me, it's a good image for us. And again, most of these events, and you mentioned Kings of Leon, some of the folks that have performed here, Gavin DeGraw, these aren't just country people, music folks, and so it puts us on the map. And like I said, I always kind of gauge it by the younger generation that's wanting, where do they want to go, and Nashville's just becoming that place. And I heard the other day, I don't know if it was in town, and some folks were telling me Nashville's like the #1 place for bachelorette parties.
I live in the Midtown area, and I can attest to that.
Yeah.
Pedal taverns all around, different parties out, different.
I mean,
girls
I don't know how you get to that point, but that's where we are,
right.
and that's good for the city. And like I said, as long as it's safe and people enjoy themselves, and that money that's going into our economy helps us that live here, provide services. So I really think it's a good thing, and it's good for the city to kind of have a staple like New Year's to be such a big deal.
Right, absolutely. And there's got to be a significant amount of planning that goes into working with the bureau, with the visitor center, with police. There's got to be years of planning for that.
Yeah, you think about what it takes to coordinate. And again, I just think about this a lot. But you've got the bowl game as a whole. There's 60,000 people trying to get to the bowl game, and that traffic. And then you've got maybe 100,000+ coming to this concert in a similar time frame. And then the regular establishments, all these things that are doing their own New Year's Eve things, and it's hard to imagine just traffic alone, and just take that subject and plan all year long, and then close your road closure, and then obviously you want to be prepared. We will have our mobile units out in case there needs to be arrests and so forth to take place. But it is a large crowd and concentrated. You want the weather to be on your side where it's not raining and causing a lot of other problems. But it's credit to the Butch Beard and at the Visitor Convention Bureau. They do a really good job of kind of making the whole week, a really good place to be. And I just think it's a good, and a Titans play too, by the way. I think if there's anyone going to those games anymore, but there's at least one more game. So a lot happening in town. Hopefully everybody gets out and enjoys themselves.
Absolutely. Well, maybe the Titans will have a little bit of a holiday spirit and can pull off a.
Or maybe the team we're playing feels sorry for us. Maybe we need some help. So,
it's bad when you have to resort to, maybe they'll just feel bad for us.
Yeah.
So let us
I'm fighting for the #1 pick. That's you kind of want to lose now to get the #1 pick. So
at this point, you might as well just want to keep losing, so you at least get the #1 pick. Because I think it was last year. A, we didn't have a great season, but B, were we the #1 pick, or
we were number 2.
Number 2, yeah. We even missed that mark.
Yeah, we couldn't even be the worst team. We were so bad. So maybe this year it's our year to do that. And but it falls that Sunday, I guess, before New Year's. So you've got just so many events heading our way, and it's just a great place to be and live, and we want to make it safe as we can and keep everybody coming back to Nashville.
Absolutely. And we talked about this at the beginning of the show, but now it's kind of a good segue. The Sober Ride program you guys are doing. If folks are just joining us, obviously there are going to be so many people downtown. Drunk driving is a concern, but you guys are really stepping up to make sure that doesn't happen around the area.
Yeah, realizing there's that many people, that many things going on. You would call this number, we would drive out and find you and take you home or to your hotel or where you wanted to go. And we've changed over the last few years because of the concentration of hundreds of thousands of people. And so what we're doing now is we will be on 2nd Avenue and Church Street, right there on the corner. There'll be large tents, Sober Ride logos all over them, and you just walk up, no questions asked. Where are you headed? I'm going to Jolton, I'm going to Antioch, I'm going to Bellevue, and we put you in a car and we take you without any questions, and we don't charge a dime, we don't accept tips. Awesome. You just go and get home safely. And so and now I want to encourage people to make a plan. There's no reason with today how you're going to get home. If you drive downtown, leave your vehicle, but go home with something that's safe and secure. You've got all sorts of cabs and Uber and Lyft and these things, but we're there as a free service. We're not competing with them for anything. We just want to make sure everyone does the right thing and makes I think a premeditated decision. You know what you're going to do and have fun and do that, but also get a safe way home.
And Uber and Lyft and these other apps now that folks can use, in addition to the cabs that are all over Nashville, really have had to help with the drunk driving problem.
Right, there's just no excuse. I don't care who you are as a parent of a young person. I've said to mine, and I believe it's the responsible thing to do. If you ever get in a situation where you're out with people who are drinking or yourself, then Uber is the way to go. And as a parent of someone like that, Lyft or these other companies are fine too. It's just the logic behind it is that there's just really no excuse, and you can't. On a night like this where you're going to plan to celebrate and have fun, and it's all about that, there's even more reason to make sure that you do something ahead of time to get your arrangements made, and there's just too many options.
Absolutely, and it seems like it's paying off, because we read recently that highway fatalities in Tennessee are down 25%, the lowest they've been in a few years. I mean, what goes into keeping those numbers down? It's got to be a lot.
I think it is about awareness. I mean, to be honest, look at all the stuff. I always say this, but I mean, a lot of countries, unlike United States, don't focus so much on DUI. This country has learned its lesson on what's happening, and the stories that you hear that are very tragic, where folks are. I remember the Oklahoma State on their parade morning. A person ran up and just killed people in the middle of the daytime. And we had the event last night in Las Vegas. I haven't heard the whole story of whether there was drinking and driving involved, but people were kind of run over on the sidewalk and some other things. But so those stories and the attention to it, and the advertisements, and even the industry, the alcohol industry is so much behind drinking responsibly nowadays. So there's really no excuse. There's no reason why you don't make arrangements to get home, and in a night like this where literally people are going to go out and enjoy themselves, just make that other step. Enter it in your phone. Put the phone number in. Have the app loaded. There's just no real reason. And even here's one: you just walk to Second and Church.
Right.
Just get to Second and Church, and you don't pay a cent, and you get home. And I think that's where you see the decrease. That people are aware of the risk associated. I mean, the cost alone of getting a DUI is in the upwards of $3,000 or $4,000, and then on top of that, all sorts of other issues that you're going to go through. And so it's just not very smart. And there's too many warnings out there, and there's too many options out there for people to get out there and still try to do it. And we want to get the word out and make sure that they don't do it over the holiday.
And do you guys work with the state and other organizations for these drunk driving initiatives in addition to the Sober Ride throughout the year? Yeah,
it's kind of ironic. The Governor's Highway Safety Office, which is kind of oversees a lot of the money and the grants around that, it funded our mobile unit that we use to go out, and that was really in an effort to decrease drunk driving arrests, and we were going to be in the field, and they do all sorts of things with Metro Police and giving money for overtime so they can be out and enforcing DUI. And like I said, whether it's the Booze It and Lose It campaigns, there's so many things that are around, targeting young people who are learning to drive and the risk associated. Unfortunately, you can't claim ignorance to this. It's just something that the community and I think this country has really taken a really strong effort to try to educate people on the risk associated with it.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's amazing. There's ads on television, there's ads along the highway. I mean, it really seems like in the last, 5 or 6 years or so, there's really been this push from all over the place. You even brought up, the beer companies themselves really stepping up.
Yeah, and even the providers, they know the risk associated. Your establishment, you own a bar or a restaurant here in town. I mean, they do a much better job, I think, today of understanding the risk associated with putting someone out on the street that is going to be potentially driving home, and having the involvement of these other companies. I think it's really healthy to have Uber and Lyft and cabs and everyone competing, because it's everywhere. You go down the streets and there's an option. There's just no reason why people would put themselves in that risk. And being a victim of a drunk driver is the crime that you're most likely to be a victim of, unless you're participating in other crimes yourself. So the innocent person driving down the street is the one who is most likely to be harmed by a drunk driver. And so that person wants to be safe, and so the enforcement of DUI laws have really been pressed by that really sometimes when you're in the drug culture and you're selling and buying drugs and there's crime associated with that, the general public kind of look at it like, well, you're in a very dangerous world of drug activity. Whereas the person who's driving home from work and is innocently killed by a drunk driver, that story reaches a different group of people. It just means, that could have happened to me.
Right.
Whereas if I'm not involved in drugs, I may not be shot or stabbed or whatever in some fight over drugs, as long as I'm not in the drug culture. If I'm just driving home and all of a sudden someone, T-bones my vehicle and kills my family, and that's something that touches everybody.
Absolutely. It makes it seem like it could really happen to anyone. At any point during the day. Well, we are going to take a quick break, but if you have any questions for us, give us a call, 737+. We'll be right back.